Is November 18th. Wow. It's amazing. So I'm joined by Councilmember Tom LaBonge, who is here. We're awaiting Councilmember Rosendahl. Did Councilmember Rosendahl want us to hold anything? Is there anything? No. Okay, great. Why don't we go? Start.
Item 1. The Board of Harbor Commissioners submits for council approval the Fourth Amendment to an agreement between the City of Long Beach, and Kay Scholler for professional legal services relating to matters having to do with implementation of the San Pedro Bay Clean Air Action Plan.
You know, I don't have a problem with this. Oh, Tom, would you like to introduce yourself for the
Good
rest?
morning, council members. Tom Russell, General Counsel, Port of Los Angeles.
The only thing I find interesting is that we are sharing this attorney with the City of Long Beach, which I find interesting because these lawsuits, you know, they've settled. We kind of have different issues. How does that work?
We have a joint defense agreement with Long Beach.
Okay.
And initially, we set up this contract with both Kay Scholler and Troutman Sanders as their subcontractor to handle common issues between the two ports.
Right.
Now that the two ports have gone their separate ways, Long
One
Beach
going
is-
the right way and one going the wrong way.
Long Beach is using Kay Scholler, and we are using, Troutman Sanders, and we are using Kay Scholler. So in other words, we have split off, and they're using the subcontractor for their work. So at this point, we are not using the same attorney. And in fact, we didn't even know the details of their settlement. That was handled by Troutman Sanders.
Okay, so Kay Scholler is just working on behalf of the Port of Los Angeles.
That's right. And where there were common issues, we split the costs with Long Beach, and they have paid.
I see. It just felt kind of weird to look at this, sharing this firm when we kind of were at odds on some very key issues of the Clean Truck Program.
Right, and we didn't share that firm where we were at odds.
Okay.
Although it might have appeared that way because
It does appear that way.
Yeah.
All right, so you still think, what's the point of sharing this firm?
Well, we're not sharing them now
Okay.
because they've gone off and settled the
But
case.
Okay.
So we're paying the full bill. We're not.
Okay, got it.
Correct.
Okay. I don't have a problem with this. How much longer do you think we're going to need this outside?
Well, we're hoping to get it done within a year by January of 2011. We have the trial set for March of this year, and there'll probably be an appeal. We hope to get it done.
How does it look?
We're optimistic. We're very optimistic.
Of course you are. Mr. LaBonge, do you have any questions about
I
this?
just think it's good because I trust Tom. Thank you so much.
Wow.
You've got a good first name.
Tom and Tom. Okay. With that, I'll accept a motion to approve.
A motion.
Okay.
Thank you.
Under item 2, the Board of Harbor Commissioners submits for approval by ordinance a permanent order to amend the tariff, Section 20, Item 2045, relating to the Clean Air Action Plan Voluntary Vessel Speed Reduction Program. The proposed amendment would provide operators of ocean-going vehicles with an additional financial incentive to reduce their NOx emissions, to reduce their speed and therefore their NOx emissions within 40 nautical miles from Point Furman. The CAO also has submitted a report and recommendation.
Good morning. Hi, Mike.
Good morning. Mike Christensen, Deputy Executive Director for the Port of Los Angeles. Council members, what is before you this morning is essentially Phase 2 of what we consider to be a very successful Phase 1 vessel speed reduction program. This program is based on the fact that as the vessels slow down to 12 knots, they become more efficient, emissions drop, and the Phase 1 of the program has cost about $1.2 million for the year 2008 and has resulted in a reduction of about 900 tons per year of NOx.
So basically, this is a voluntary program, right? We're telling ships, slow down when you get 40 miles out.
That's correct.
They don't have to do this.
This Phase 2 will extend it from
So
20
we're basically giving them money to do this.
That's correct.
So why would anybody do it voluntarily at this point, right? They're only doing it because we're giving them money, which is okay, but
There's a fuel savings, but there's a time penalty. So they're able to become more efficient and save some fuel as well. But you're correct that there's only so much a pure voluntary program would do, and I think we saw what that could be achieved prior.
And now nobody's going to volunteer to do it if they know there's
One
an
thing,
incentive.
one thing I would note that in terms of the Phase 2, the 40 nautical mile extension, we're estimating the additional cost will be about $400,000 to the program.
So how much do you give per ship?
The ship per ship is about $1,650 is what we would think
Per
vessel call.
per vessel call. So you give them about $1,600 per vessel call to slow down.
That's correct.
And who monitors this? How do we really know they're slowing down?
We have some pretty neat stuff that is monitored through the vessel exchange, the marine exchange up on the hill at Angels Gate at the top of the hill.
Do they get their money? When do they get their money?
They get it. What we do is we'll go through it a year and we'll monitor an account, and then they get their credits in the following year.
I see.
And the telemetry and the information we get from vessel exchanges.
Do we have enough money available for every ship call?
We do.
Yes.
We have.
Is everybody doing it? Why wouldn't you not do it?
That's a very good question.
Really? Thank you.
It would have to do with decisions on the part of the individual shipping lines to get in faster, to spend less time transiting that 40 nautical miles. But we believe everyone should be doing it.
Yeah, and you've made every effort, which I applaud the port. You've made every effort to give them an incentive to do it. About how much time difference is this? 40 miles
Eric,
out.
would you know that answer that question?
About 2 hours.
Oh, 2 hours.
Okay,
About 2 hours.
$800 an hour. Still not bad. That's not a bad incentive.
Not bad.
But it costs them 2 hours.
And considering that under the
That's
Phase
amazing.
2, we're going to spend about $860 per ton of reduction, this is truly low-hanging fruit because the Carl Moyer amount right now is over $14,000 a ton.
Right. So we're getting a real bang for our buck on this.
That's correct.
And it's very appreciative. And I always like to remind people that 20% of all the air pollution in the Los Angeles basin comes from ships, which is an interesting fact that I think a lot of people don't realize. And we know that particularly for those residents who are around the Point Fermin area of San Pedro, they do appreciate the lower emissions with the speed reduction program. So I really want to thank the port for doing this. I don't know why every ship wouldn't want to participate. Those that don't, you think it's purely based on they just don't want to take the extra 2 hours? Gee, you think they've come all that way? What's 2 hours?
I think what you have is you have a very high compliance rate with the frequent visitors.
Right.
Those and for instance, with our program today out to 20, we have over 90% compliance.
That's
Probably those who are not complying are the infrequent folks who simply
Right.
are not aware of the program.
Okay, that's a good point. How do we make them aware of it?
We just continue our outreach to all the shipping lines and terminal operators, and hopefully as more people sign on, more people will become aware.
Are the cruise ships available for this? Do they participate?
Yes.
They do.
Yeah, but they actually have a slightly different speed because they're different configurations.
Right. I remember that with our talks with Disney.
Yeah.
They were saying there was a certain speed that they actually felt like they were, the engines were
Yeah, they don't have additional
operating worse.
Right.
That's right.
Okay, so you work with them on that. What about those tankers and liquid bulk ships? Everybody's eligible?
The tankers and liquid bulk are highly compliant. In fact, in the month of October, since we kicked this Phase 2 off, we have 18 operators at 100%, and the majority of those are liquid bulk carriers.
Excellent. So total tons of emissions that have been reduced through this program.
Well, again, in the year 2008, it was 900 tons. We're looking at ratcheting that up to an additional 1,450 tons if we go to 40 nautical miles. So we more than double the reduction in NOx.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay, so what we're doing today is just extending this incentive program.
That's correct. Phase 2 of the
Right.
vessel speed reduction.
Great. Good job. I think it's a great program. I talk about it all the time. I'm happy to support
Thank
you.
you
Yes.
very much. I appreciate this. I do see, as a 30-year hiker in Griffith Park, often when the Santa Anas blow, the fate of air pollution in what would be the East-South Bay, traditional South Bay being that Hermosa and Manhattan, et cetera. But the port area. So this will make an effective difference in that, and I thank you. Thank you for your leadership, Ms. Hahn. I say I move this matter.
Thank you. Without objection. Thanks, everybody. Okay, you want to hold item 3 until, let's hold item 3. Let's go to item 4.
Under item 4, the mayor submits for consideration and approval the reports and recommendations of the Convention Center Department and the City Administrative Officer relating to proposed amendment number 2 to the Convention Center's contract with Aramark Sports and Entertainment for the management and operation of food and beverage services at the Convention Center. The proposed amendment would extend the contract term for 6 months, beginning January 1, 2010, ending on June 30th, 2010, and would add the most recent version of standard provisions for city contracts, pending the award and execution of a new contract for food and beverage services at the Convention Center. Both the Convention Center and CAO recommend approval of the contract amendment.
Okay, here's kind of what I'm feeling. Why are we extending this for 6 months? I know you got your bids in for your RFP in May. We tell people, once the bids come in, 6 months, we'll have we'll at least make a decision one way or the other. So why are we asking for this extension for 6 months for the current contractor? Why do you think you needed this outside financial consultant? And why didn't you figure this out a lot sooner than bring them on in October to begin analyzing these bids? That's kind of, I'm a little disappointed because, I've been meeting with obviously a lot of people who are very interested in the Convention Center, very interested in this RFP process, interested in doing work. I know I've spoken with the current contractor as well as many others. I know for employees, people are, it's a little anxiety going around with current employees wondering what's going on. Okay, now it's 6 months. What's happening? Where did we go wrong on our timeline?
Very good. Good morning, council members. Philip Hill, Assistant General Manager, Convention Center.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'll give you a quick update and be happy to answer all the questions you just asked.
Okay.
The Convention Center is in the end phases of the review for this current RFP process. I'll go back to let me talk about what kind of happened that got us to this point.
Okay.
The process is going smoothly and is going well, but we did notice also at one point in the process that some of the financial information that came back was not apples to apples. For example, performance of a company versus their parent company. Problems like that were encountered. That and other items, it was recommended that we move on to get an outside auditing agency to be able to confirm the numbers that we actually have computed, just to ensure that we have good stability of our process and that we don't have bias. So those results were turned in. We received those Monday of this week. And so we're looking at that.
For the financial advisor.
That is correct, and that covers 2 of the 10 basically categories that we're looking at as far as grading. The other 8 categories, the team has come to a decision on those, so once we can scrub those financial numbers that were received this week, we'll rapidly be moving into a short list.
So you're telling me, as the Convention Center in the country's second largest city, you've never dealt with RFPs or bids where you had to look at some of those things? That doesn't seem all that unusual, financials for a parent company versus, that seems pretty normal.
Yes, the information we received back from the contractors, it just wasn't easily comparable because some would say, these are my financials, but some would have huge parent organizations and they would.
I know, I'm just saying, that's not unusual.
Yes.
I'm surprised, I guess I'm surprised you didn't think about that.
Well, we determined.
In May.
Yes.
I think that's my point.
Okay,
I'm not saying this is a bad idea.
Thank you. Yes.
At all. I'm just saying this doesn't seem unusual for a city of our size to receive bids that have financials that might need to be analyzed by a third party.
That is correct.
I'm surprised that you didn't think about it until October.
Yes. It wasn't, I won't say not thought about until October, but basically a while back there was a determination we needed additional assistance, then had to go through an RFP process.
When was that you determined you needed additional assistance?
On Agnes Cole Convention Center. It was approximately August that we determined we needed financial assistance. So we reached out to the Office of the Controller, who has a master list of auditing firms that have already gone through the RFP process. So we did a mini RFP. We had a scope of work developed. I sent it out to the 30 or so vendors on the master list, and then we awaited their response. We had
This was really a surprise to everybody that you were going to go in that direction from the very beginning? I mean, you didn't kind of think this through?
We normally do receive financials as part of our RFP process. However, the magnitude of this contract and the severe negative potential impact, should there be a failure to verify and audit the financial backing.
I agree. Why didn't you think about that when you sent your RFPs out in the first place for the bids?
That was an error on our part, and we have learned that in larger contracts of this magnitude, we'll definitely put in some additional time for an outside.
I think my point is I agree with you. I think you're absolutely right. We want to do this right. We want to do it thorough. We want to do it accurate. I'm just surprised.
Understood.
Okay.
Thank you.
Second thing is, if we move forward with this, sounds like you, as you said, all the other categories you've kind of looked at and come to a conclusion. You're waiting to scrub the financials. If we agree to the 6-month extension today, if you come to a conclusion on, let's just say it happens to be a new contractor, would you have to wait 6 months? What if they're ready to get up and running, they're prepared? Can you shorten the existing 6 months contract that we're awarding today, or how do you envision that process?
Well, the department certainly would have a recommendation shortly, and it would have to go through the city's approval process, which could be lengthy, which means that we need to sit down with the contractor, negotiate a contract, get the city attorney's approval as to form, get the mayor's office buy-in approval, as well as city council. So we anticipate a long process.
You think that's going to be 6 months?
Sometimes it does take up to 6 months, correct. And it's so important we cannot have interruption in service. It can take up to 6 months, because it has to go through committee, it has to go through full council, full consideration.
Yeah, but now you're talking about my body, not my body, but my legislative body. So you're talking about my committee, you're talking about my city council, which I'm happy to shepherd this through.
Yes. We would,
Good morning.
We would definitely like to.
Madam Chair, I'm dismissing myself. That's okay.
I don't think that's allowable. I mean, I think you have to add. Yeah. Thank you. Have fun. Go plant a tree.
Thank you. Yes. Our number one focus is to ensure that we have good continuity of service. We think we would like your assistance, definitely, and those are the other leaders of the city to be able to move this through the process rapidly. But we believe 6 months is a short but halfway safe time frame if we move quickly.
So you think when do you think you'll be able to award this contract based on the fact that this financial advisor is now on board?
I would say within a week and a half, we will have a short list based on the groupings, how it comes out, and then a very short amount of weeks later, this calendar year, will be a final decision.
Okay. And you think it will take 6 months to go through the process?
We think that at most, if we work quickly, it would take 6 months. I would anticipate it not taking less than 3 to 4, but that's not a lot of margin left.
What if let's just say, what if it did take 3 and there was a new contractor?
It would at least give the new contractor a little extra time to start working the transition plan and to making sure that's seamless for our clients. That's probably the most difficult part of this equation, let's say with a new contractor, is how do they come in and provide seamless service even when you've got existing contracts with clients already out there.
Right.
So it will help them basically improve the quality of their transitioning.
Okay.
I'm just curious, we had a discussion the other day.
Yes, sir.
About staying in the black or not in the black and overtime and how you have to really service the clients. Is business down as much as you were projecting, 30% or so?
Business is down more than we really had anticipated. We were looking at a 12 based on last year, 12 to 15%.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that with our sister basically centers across the nation. In general, it's about 25%.
25%.
For selected markets like Hawaii or Vegas, you're looking at more like 45%, sir.
Lord have mercy, mercy, mercy. And so as you go through this period here, do you have enough flexibility in your workforce to deal with that?
We do not, sir.
So how do you deal with it?
Right now, that's a huge part of the discussions that we're going under. Currently, the convention center is at a 25% vacancy rate, anticipated to rise to 41 based on ERIP. Right now, we're really balancing a lot, and what we're actually in basically
How many repeat people will you lose, do you figure?
approximately 22, I believe, sir, based on the list that we do have.
Yeah, and will that be a brain drain in the sense of key points?
Absolutely, sir. These are people that have been with the center forever, so they are key people, and we don't know yet how to operate the center at that level. That's what's happening behind the scenes is right now with 25%, we are struggling in a huge way to be able to maintain service. For example, last week I worked 11 straight days supporting a client.
Wow.
Because we're trying to compensate. But at 41%, we don't know how to recover. So we're trying to figure out how to keep the doors open at a 41% level. So we need extreme flexibility in other ways pretty rapidly.
And can we assist in any way here?
Absolutely, sir. In fact, you already have been with the flexible demand-based pricing that's being heard today, with the marketing incentive, especially when it comes to how we schedule, how do we schedule labor? As an example, imagine that you've got a furlough situation, and in a furlough week, you can't schedule overtime for somebody. So I've got an electrician I've got to employ for the auto show, and if this is their furlough week of 36.5 hours, I can't give them overtime, but I can on the 40-hour week. So the question really comes down to how do we even schedule labor?
Yeah.
So a big part of what we're bringing to this committee comes down to flexibility, and how do we actually achieve the contractually required service delivery that we are mandated to do with our clients. It's actually a process. How do we do it?
Sure.
And that is a huge part of what we're dealing with behind the scenes as the city goes through a pretty tough time. Our number one focus, we have two primary areas of focus. Number one is to support the hospitality industry because those hotels are in trouble. Number two, just as important, stay off the general fund. And we are driven at that. But we really can't do it with both hands tied, but maybe only one hand tied. So any assistance you can
obviously, any other suggestions you have of how we can assist, we're obviously all in this together, and I don't think next year's going to be any better, especially when I hear what the state's already looking at. We're going to be looking at a big issue, too.
Yes. We'll be happy to bring those items forward. We've been working closely with our partners, the CEO. They are quite good.
Thank you. And I mean, I think you mentioned flexibility and delivering services, and I think that was part of why, I want to make sure this process is fair to everybody. It's fair to the current contractor, but it's really fair to those who, when they submitted their bid in May, really felt like they were on a track to begin, to if chosen, to begin work.
Yes.
So I'm still a little unclear on the 6 months on whether or not you can terminate that early if, in fact, the process does go smooth and say you get somebody in March ready to go, or not? Are we locked into 6 months?
There is a standard early termination clause in all city contracts.
Okay. All right. Let me just say, why don't you come back in January and report to this committee on how we're going. And I want us to feel a sense of urgency about this because, as you know and I know, things can 6 months, then it becomes a year, and then it becomes, and we haven't done things. So let's come back in January. Hopefully, if you've chosen someone, then we can talk about the process and how we move that forward.
Thank you.
Okay. Report back in January.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Why don't you stay here and we'll take the next item.
Under item 5, the Convention Center and the CAO submit their reports in response to motion Perry Hahn concerning a proposed flexible demand-based pricing policy for the use of space at the Convention Center. Representatives of the Convention Center and CAO are here, along with representatives of the City Attorney and Chief Legislative Analyst. The CLA is recommending council approval of a specific list of actions that we believe should be taken in order to assist the attorney in drafting the proposed ordinance.
Well, this is a little bit about what you were talking about. This is the flexible demand-based rental pricing policy for our convention center. And Jan Perry and I brought this forward with the idea that, again, during these tough economic times, maybe we can give our convention center folks a little bit more flexibility, a little more ability to give some incentives out there in terms of renting space that would maybe bring more clients in, would provide them a little bit of flexibility. So maybe you can tell me a little bit where we are. I know the city attorney had some issues with this, but is this something that you think we're going to be able to do under our current, charter?
Yes. Good morning, Madam Chair. My name and council member. My name is Mary Jane Aquino. I'm the acting assistant general manager for the Los Angeles Convention Center. And first, I'd like to say that I do appreciate the members of the committee that have been put together to craft the circumstances, the conditions, criteria, as well as the actual practical implementation of flexible demand-based pricing at the Los Angeles Convention Center. You see here before you the representatives from CAO, City Attorney, CLA, as well as LA Inc., and of course Convention Center, to craft this together. And going back to January, when we did have the motion to request for the implementation of flexible pricing at the Convention Center, since then this committee has met several times over the course of many months to put together this practical implementation, and that is why we are here before you today, because we have gone through that process, sifted through the information, the sources, and all discussions, and we are here before you saying that we do have a basis for the practical implementation of flexible pricing.
Good.
Yes. When we started, we did request a certain percentage. At the time, it was the 30% upwards or downwards of the fixed rates that is currently in place based on Section 187.2. And over the course of the discussions, it was determined that the Convention Center actually do need even more flexibility to enable us to meet the exigencies of this current tough economic times, as well as the concept itself being used to meet demands based on seasonality, based on whatever on demand and whatever else is going on with the industry as well as the economy in general. So at this point in time, we are requesting that we be allowed a 50% upwards or downwards
50%.
Yes, as well as another level of approval if the particular event may need an adjustment beyond maybe the 50% that's being contemplated.
And you went to the 50% from the 30% because?
Because of the difficulty of what's happening within the industry, and in particular our industry and the economy in general. It has really impacted us, and therefore we need to be able to be more nimble to meet the needs of our clients, our event planners, and sometimes in a very short period of time to be able to actually bring an event.
And have you heard from your clients that this 50% discount would be welcomed, would be embraced, we're ready to book?
Well, the concept itself is being used in other facilities already, both public and private. And
Where is it being used in public facilities?
one of our examples was the George R. Brown Center. Anaheim also has a flexible pricing.
Because one of the issues that the city attorney brings up is fairness. And the city attorney was very concerned that this flexible pricing would not survive legal scrutiny. They sort of said private industry can operate like this, but public entities can't really pick and choose who we give certain rates to, and would that look discriminatory, and would this ultimately look like a gift of public funds? How do you address what the city attorney is raising?
I believe that over the course, and the city attorney can also say something about that, but I do believe that over the course of the period that we have been diligently meeting, that we have we have put together a procedure in place.
Okay.
So that
And the city attorney's been part of your committee?
Yes.
Okay, good. Maybe would the city attorney like to, you're okay now with their policy, their triggers, some of those things?
Yes,
Your name for the record.
Terry Martin Brown, Assistant City Attorney. What we were looking for basically was some documentation and data beyond just anecdotal recitations of the problems that we all sort of know the convention center, the world is now facing in the economic environment. And we have now received that. The convention center staff has provided adequate documentation and data, graphs that indicate that the problem is quite severe. The information they provided is objective. So I feel that now the committee that Ms. Aquino referred to earlier that has worked on crafting a policy has now developed a framework that the city attorney's office feels would be legally defensible.
Oh, good.
Now, that is not to say that there won't be some people out there who will challenge this, who will complain that perhaps they have already licensed space and that they're paying more. So that will be.
So you put in, okay, that's good to hear. So you put into place basically 3 triggers that would, allow this flexible pricing to be offered?
Yes.
And quickly, could you explain those 3 triggers?
Yes. Very quickly. The 3 major criteria are when a show management cancels within a 12-month period. That will be one of the triggers.
Okay.
Another one will be when the space itself has been vacant for 2 years. 2 years. Under certain sets of conditions, such as the level and degree of competition with other convention centers, and maybe the licensing of several licenses within a 2-week period, and other conditions that will be reviewed on a case-to-case basis with proper documentation, of course. And the third one will be when the anticipated ancillary revenue is going to be at least 50% of what the discounted rate is going to be. Those are the main triggers, and within those triggers will be those conditions that would, entail the approval process that has been put together by the.
On the cancellation, the trigger number 1, if someone cancels or downsizes, is that client eligible to come back at the reduced rate?
Well, most of the time when a client's canceling, they're paying a substantial cancellation fee.
Your name for the record.
Pat Gunnis, I'm the Senior Vice President of Sales for the Convention Center. Currently, contractually, based on the city attorney and just based on protecting the city and the center, there are cancellation fees when you pull out. When that wouldn't come into play, obviously, if a company were to go out of business. And even in those cases, we've gone to bankruptcy court to protect the city and gotten a substantial amount back. In most cases, the gravity of being sued, et cetera, are so great that the client would come back and look to negotiate on a different level other than rental. You have to understand what's happening is we've negotiated a deal 5 years ago. The deals we're currently negotiating are a lot better because 5 years ago the economic situation, as we all know, was not what it is now.
Right.
What we're experiencing, just to give you an example, is we have a group that's scheduled a citywide convention that's scheduled to be here next August, who came in and told us that 3 other cities have come to them and offered them no rent at all because it's brings about $10 million to the city in all different kinds of revenue. Fortunately, it's a long-standing client that was upfront enough to come and speak to us directly about it. The deal had already been approved by the mayor 4 years ago, and we went to the client and said we could do nothing about the current deal, but if they were willing to come back and commit for 5 years, we would be willing to go to the mayor and ask for a substantial reduction in rental. At which point, now we're getting both. We show the client that we're not overburdening them this year, and their suggestion was for us to increase prices to the exhibitors to offset what we would give them as almost like a rebate. We said we couldn't do that because we publish our prices on our web link, and we didn't want her exhibitors to think we were taking advantage of them to the benefit of the client.
Okay. All right. Well, that's a good answer. I was just kind of trying to figure out current ones, and then I know you have some questions. I like the fact that the city attorney is on board with this. The one missing piece for me when I looked at this, and I might have missed it, was what role does the commission have in this new policy or any of these triggers that you foresee?
I can.
Or should they?
I believe I can answer that. The commissions for the convention center are advisory to the general manager. So based on the information I have, they should not have a decision in this process. That would be with the general manager.
And the Board of Convention Center Commissioners is advisory. The Los Angeles Convention and Exhibition Authority has totally different responsibilities.
Right.
That don't.
Right. I was just thinking in terms of fairness and just making sure that, again, it sees the light of day when some of these triggers are pulled. This is our Citizens Commission. I mean, that's our form of government in Los Angeles, between the mayor and the general managers. Seems to me, I don't know, it might just be something you might want to consider that maybe, when these triggers begin to be pulled, at least maybe it's something for them to take a look at.
Well, if I may address that just briefly.
Okay.
In considering that point, the city attorney's office feels that the reporting mechanism that is part of this framework is very important because it serves an oversight function. There is a provision for quarterly reporting to, if council so decides, the controller of the CAO and the office of the mayor. In addition to that, I would suggest that those bodies be able to request a report at any time. And also, we'd like to require that the department develop a written policy for their internal approval process. In other words, you have a preliminary recommendation by a sales representative who's dealing with a prospective tenant or licensee. You have the sales and marketing director, Ms. Gunnis, making a preliminary approval of that based on a number of facts and criteria. You have the general manager issuing the final approval, and then the reporting mechanism.
Well, maybe the commission just looks at this policy overall. Maybe the commission looks at this policy that we're developing for flexible.
We can definitely make that happen.
Yeah, I just like to
Thank you.
engage our citizen commission in this because I do think this is new, this is different. We do want to make sure this is all in the light of day and that it is done properly and with fairness and integrity. And I agree. I would think, quarterly or. And this is a pilot program too, right? It's like a 3-year pilot program.
Yes, it is.
And at the end of that, of course, we would like to have the controller take a look at it and see whether or not it was, a good thing that we did. I like it. I want to do it. I just want to make sure as we do it, we don't get hung up on any unforeseen obstacles. But I think it's exactly what we like to do. We like to empower our departments, our entities, to do what they need to do to respond to this horrible economic crisis, which we haven't seen since the Great Depression. And sometimes we are so slow and so bureaucratic that we cannot respond to it. And we in Los Angeles, should be able to respond to it. And we should be able to do things that actually help us take advantage of a bad situation and turn it around for good. Mr. Rosendahl. Yeah.
John Wickham with the CLA's office. I just wanted to handle some of the technical side of all of this. You have 3 different documents that have come to the committee: the original motion,
right,
a report from the CAO, and a report from the department. And there's information in each of those 3 pieces that needed to be pulled together.
Right.
And so we distributed for your committee that piece that pulls it all together with the technical instructions to make sure that the city attorney has information to prepare an ordinance, and that the reports are handled appropriately.
Right.
So.
Good. Thank you. And so basically what we're doing today is, yes, okay, here it is. So we're basically today instructing LACC to prepare an implementation policy for flexible pricing to be reviewed by the City Council within 100 days. And then note and file these reports.
And requesting the city attorney to draft the ordinance and bring that back for your consideration.
Okay. Oh, yeah, right. There it is. Number 1. Okay, good.
It's all good. I'm with it.
Good. I am too. These are the kind of things I like us to do.
Me too. I mean, we got to do something.
Right.
I think you've outlined a very good plan. It gives you the flexibility, it gives you the entrepreneurial abilities to negotiate and to work with.
Right, and you're out there, you're on the front lines, you know what's happening, and I think you see what could be a very creative solution. So we really appreciate all of your hard work in coming up with this, and we're glad the city attorney is on board with this.
So we're going to move that out of
committee
on that, but I just want to ask you one other thing since you're back up here.
Yes, sir.
This furlough business, I can't take it. Is this the EEA or whatever?
The furloughs are all both your coalition and non-coalition, but it comes down to a process of if I need to schedule overtime, which I do, especially when I have high vacancy rates, then how do I do it when I've got furlough weeks that I can't do it in? And I've got 240.
Because if you need an electrician to put in something for an exhibit, I mean, for God's sake, we got to do it.
Yes, right now we are still reviewing processes. We don't know how to do it. We're experimenting right now.
Okay, well, please come to us if there's some guidance we can give you.
Thank you, sir.
Because I don't want that furlough issue to stop business from coming in because we can't put somebody on to do something.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Wait. Oh, that's public comment. Okay. All right, thank you very much. Do you make a motion to do what?
So moved.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Without objection, we'll approve
That would be
asking the city attorney to prepare an ordinance, instruct the convention LICC to prepare an implementation policy for review by the council within 120 days, and to note and file the LICC and CAO reports. Okay, good. Good job. Oh, they're nice because they don't lay in the fall. Okay, 4 is good. 4 is good. Okay, let's go back to item 3 for Councilmember Rosendahl.
The mayor has
Under item 3, the Board of Airport Commissioners submits for approval the second amendment to the contract with Cubic Transportation Systems for maintenance and support of the computerized parking control system at LAX, Ontario International, and Van Nuys. The amendment would extend the contract term for an additional year, expiring on January 31, 2011, and add $3,335,000 in compensation authority to cover the period, for a total contract amount of a little over $26 million, pending the preparation and release of a new RFP for another contract. The CAO has submitted a report and recommendation for an extension of 2 years. The board subsequently chose to approve an extension of only 1 year.
Okay.
Good morning. I'm Kim Ellis. I'm the manager for Landside Operations and the Office of Compliance and Standards at LAX, and we're asking for your approval for an extension of 1 year for Cubic to maintain an existing, very proprietary software and hardware system that takes care of our parking lot ticket issue machines and the revenue system that associated with that.
Why, if it was sought originally too, why was it the board voted for one?
I believe it was we looked at how much longer we want to keep dragging this out. There's, this Cubic was first brought in 1989. They're operating a DOS system on the computers. Obviously, Windows has come out with 7 now. And the infrastructure to support that is also moving ahead with IT and installation of conduit and fiber systems to support a new parking system. And we are moving ahead with the RFP that should be out by April. The word I got last week from our finance office is running the RFP.
Okay, Mr. Rosendahl, would you like to ask some questions?
Yeah. So you went to 1 year rather than the 2, because basically you want to revamp the whole system.
Yes, sir.
So you don't want to put that much more time in it.
No.
And do you think you're comfortable enough that you'll be able to do that within this year? And will there be bidders and RFP? How will this work?
The RFP will be on the street. It's our intention to have it on the street by May. Give us several months to the bidders to come in and look at it. We are putting in the infrastructure that will support a lot of this system at LAX. It may be the same systems at Ontario and Van Nuys simply because of the cost and the financial situations in Ontario right now.
Right.
But it'll be some of our infrastructure, the airport's infrastructure, that will support the new parking lot system.
That's cool.
Okay, good. Motion to approve?
Yeah.
So approved.
Move forward with it. Sure.
Okay. Let's go on to,
You've finished.
we finished. Okay, we have a public comment. Arnold Sachs. I signed it. Huh? I did not. I cut
Yes, good morning. Arnold Sachs. Can't tell you how disappointed I was in the committee meeting, in the meeting last week when you had the airport in front of the city council and you were describing and discussing the funding for the project for the Bradley West Terminal. And you were talking about how it was the Bradley Terminal, and I believe Mr. Weezer, Councilman Weezer, asked what exactly that's being funded, and the gentleman sitting there said, we're funding for the Bradley West Terminal. So I'm just totally, somewhat confused more than normally. But another grand plan for LAX. That was the plan that was unveiled. It shows the Sky Bridge with a panoramic view of the ocean. Soaring mountains, passengers, panoramic view of the ocean, mountain, and city skylines. This is my view of that panoramic view of the ocean. There you can see it. This is LAX. The more money goes in, the darker the hole. LAX retools Bradley Terminal. It was mentioned that the Bradley West was part of the LAX master plan. Well, if Bradley West was part of the LAX master plan, what's the status of the midfield concourse? What's the status of this bridge? You heard people come up here and talk about a pilot that was disoriented, almost caused a collision on the runways because there were no lights on that particular taxiway. But there's money to spend on projects that aren't being built, that to be designed that aren't being built. So who's in charge here? What's going on? Who's asking a question? Who's answering a question? I'd like to know if there's a collision and somebody says, well, wait, they spent money to design this bridge, they spent money to design this terminal, there's no runway to get to the damn terminal. Why didn't they spend the money on the lights? Well, because, I don't know, I'm confused.
Thank you very much. Anybody else in the audience wishing to address this committee? Seeing none, this motion.